everybody, welcome back to another episode of the ProfNoctis Weekly Show. We are in the Last of Us mode, and Season 2 has just dropped, and we are here with our Episode 1 recap, initial thoughts, instinct analysis. I am Professor Noctis, and I am here with Evan.
Hey everybody, good to be here. It's finally time. I can't believe it. We've been talking about it for so long.
For 9 weeks we've been talking about this, and so it's exciting that we finally are here. We just finished watching the first episode of Season 2 of The Last of Us, and Evan, was it everything you dreamed?
It was all of the future days that I could have ever imagined. That was the title of the episode, everyone. The title of the episode was Future Days. I very much enjoyed myself after a nice and crazy emotional Masters tournament.
Oh my gosh,
which we both,
yes.
Rory! This is for you, Rory! Everybody, I don't know how much crossover there is for golf fans and everybody that watches the show. But, for those few of you who are really into golf, or maybe you're from Ireland, congratulations to Ireland as well.
We're here for you too.
A major accomplishment. Anyways, back to the
But
Last of
tonight,
Us.
we are here for The Last of Us.
But congratulations, Rory. Seriously.
Yeah, we do want to say congratulations to Rory. Tonight, the first episode of Season 2 has aired, and it is emotional. I was surprised, Evan, at how quickly I got back into The Last of Us mode. Of I know we've been watching week to week, but it was all kind of like recapping, like we did this 2 years ago.
We were in familiar territory. But
now I'm like, okay, what's going to happen?
We don't know. Well, that's the fun of week-to-week television, is that you don't know what is going to happen. And so we play games, and you get these spoilers, and you revisit all of these stories and these IPs in your classes. But there's something special about no one knowing what exactly is going to happen and how they're going to choose to tell this story. So this is really a first for us, because we're getting to experience this together step by step and with you, the audience. So we're really excited to walk alongside you on this one.
Well, and this is a great point to kind of talk about some of our logistics of what this show is really going to be and this recap of this season is going to be. Because the first season was easy to understand. It's like, okay, it's pretty linear. Episode 1 corresponds with this segment of the game. But Season 2 doesn't seem to be doing that, at least right off the bat.
Yeah.
And even though I've played through part 2 of The Last of Us, and you've played through part 2 of The Last of Us, this feels fresh. And there are things that happen in part 2 of the game series that I don't know if they're going to happen or happen the same way or in the same sequence as they did in the game. And that's what's really interesting.
Great point. If you haven't followed along, and this is your first episode, part of this lecture series is that we are evaluating the television show episode by episode, but then Wade on Tuesday nights is playing the section of the video game that corresponds with what transpires in the show, for the most part.
And my work is cut out for me with this one. I'm going to have like 30 save files.
It's going to be unreal. You're going to have to, and you're streaming this in 2 days?
In 2 days. I haven't even downloaded the game again. So,
well, with your internet, you might want to get a download tonight. Yeah, that's exactly it. Everybody throwing up to the big guy for Wade's internet and his PC here. So I think that week to week is different for us, and I'm excited about that. And I'm excited to see those sections of those video games and compare that. And we're going to do a little bit of that tonight, but we have a lot of unknowns that we finally have some answers to. How are they going to tell the story? Why are they going to do it in one way or the other? What things are they going to focus on? What might they cut? What are they going to leave? Where's the halfway point in the game going to be? Because this season only covers like half of
the game.
There's 2 seasons that they're going to do this game. So the second game, they've got this season and then one more. So seasons 2 and 3 will all cover just one game. But season 1 was all of the first game, and the second game is a lot longer. But I'm interested to see where they go with it.
Me too. So before we get into all the things that we're going to discuss in this episode, there are some basic ground rules that we want to make you aware of as the audience. First of all, we're going to stick primarily to the content of this episode. We're going to analyze it for themes. We're going to look at things that we found interesting, things that really worked. We're going to kind of recap it as we have done with the first season. We're also going to go into what were our biggest moments, the best of us in The Last of Us.
It's the best of us segment. I'm so excited for it.
The best of us segment. But then in the very end, all of this episode until the very end is what we are going to call spoiler free, because we're not going to really talk about things that we know from the game. But in our final segment of every episode, there's going to be kind of a prediction section. And that's where we may begin to muse a little bit about things that happen in the game. We're going to give you that warning beforehand. So if you don't want to be spoiled about things that may or may not happen in this season, you can turn off and join us next week. Okay. So those are the basic ground rules. We are going to stick to them, unflinchingly so. We're loyal. Good to our word.
Yeah, and if you've watched the show before, you know we don't make mistakes. We're always right.
Never. We're so professional.
But we are quick. We are quick to acknowledge and apologize because we are all about moving. And this show starts moving when it opens up here. So
it does. So let's get into it.
You know, the HBO screen, the fuzz goes away, and then we're back in Last of Us world. But we don't know what it's going to open with here.
Evan, did you watch the recap, though, before the fuzzy screen? The recap of season 1?
I skipped it.
Okay, so listen, and for our...
Because we just watched it.
I know we did, but listen, there's always... HBO does these masterclass recaps in all of their shows, and this was a banger. The music, just the voiceover of different lines that Ellie or Joel were saying during season 1, it really got me primed for what to look for in this episode and in the future. And so go back and watch that recap. It was really good.
That's actually going to be really fun because we'll see if I picked up and focused on the same things that you did with that kind of primer. I'm glad that worked out that way. We did a nice control test there.
Yeah, that's
unintentional
research.
It is. Well, we really like to approach the scientific method. And so as the episode opens, we meet a new host of characters that we haven't met before. And it's just kind of, we see some giraffes. The episode opens with the end
of season 1.
Season 1, where Ellie and Joel are talking, and she just says, essentially, tell me that everything you said is true.
And he says that he swears, and she says, okay. But then, instead of it going to black, she walks down the mountain, and he just kind of slowly follows, and it's in awkward, delicious silence. And I was like, oh, this is going to be good. This is going to gut me. Because the tension even then was palpable. And then it flashes over to this snowy we
dip to white to the giraffes first in between visually, which I think is very intentional. So I think that's we'll come back to that
because it makes you think of when Ellie and Joel saw the giraffes that's it.
So they dip to white, and when you're from the giraffes, instead of dipping to black, they dip to white, and then we meet the snow and all of our fun new characters. Tell us a little bit, as spoiler-free as possible. Yeah. They tell us some details about this, and the characters kind of unfold, but they seem pretty somber, but they also seem like they're the kind of people that could get into some trouble themselves.
Well, it cuts to this area with all of these crosses, clearly graves, maybe fresh graves, and you've got people that are looking pretty somber, solemn, and just pissed off. I mean, they're ticked, all right? I mean, we've got one girl played by Caitlin Dever. It's without an S, isn't it? I think it's Dever.
That's the one I didn't look up the pronunciation.
Dang it. Caitlin Dever. She is over on the right-hand side, and she's kind of facing with her back to all the graves, looking back at everyone else. But she has like this posture of just fury in her. Yeah. And every time she speaks, it's like, oh gosh, not just a chip on her shoulder, but she's got a warranted chip on her shoulder.
Right. And we come to learn that they were members of the Fireflies. Yeah. They're unsure what to do. There's some talk of going west to a different group that was maybe out west near Seattle. Yeah. But then we find out that everybody has been murdered. All these people that Joel killed at the end of season 1, here they are under the ground. And so they're talking about...
these are the survivors of that massacre at the end of the first season, Joel's slaughter, I guess.
And we learn a lot really quickly. And so I think that we're not going to linger as much on the specific details of what happens in these different sections. But this one I think is really important because they set up these characters and their purpose immediately. And it's going to be one of the central things that kind of drives the action in the show. So we learn that they're kind of feeling hopeless. They say that things are pointless. And even if we had what we needed, then they point like somebody's dead. And we're not quite sure what it all means. But we can tell that they've been disrupted. Something that was critically important was lost and or killed. And that they know Joel's name and they don't know really much else. And that's kind of where it ends, except we see a more sadistic side of this character as we kind of end. She has something that she wants to make sure happens when they find Joel. What do they want, and how does she want it to happen?
Abby is on a revenge tour. That is what she is after. Her father was killed, and she is going to she is going to do justice where she sees fit, and that's going to be for hunting down this Joel or Joe or Jones or whatever his name is. I think they say that.
Yeah.
And all they know about him is that he's apparently graying, handsome, and was. Yeah, they say all of this, and it's like, but Abby's like, we're going to find him, we're going to kill him, and then in just this like guttural sort of thing that you can feel, just like terror, she says, slowly, when we do it, we're going to do it slowly to really like serve justice. Yeah. This isn't just like eye for an eye here. Like this is going to be, he's going to feel it and know.
This is clearly personal. And so we will revisit this cast of characters as the story goes on, and we actually see them at the very end of this episode. So that's all we get from them, really. Anything else that we would add to this would be pulling from knowledge that we don't have yet, and we want the show to build that knowledge of these characters, because these are different characters in the game. These are new characters. They're inspired by the characters in the game, but we got to let these characters breathe and their motivations breathe and understand it. So we're not going to try and apply too much of what we know based on the game, and so we'll just let that be there. And so we open immediately to Ellie doing a little sparring action here.
5 years later.
Yeah.
5 years later. And we have what feels like, oh gosh, is she fighting somebody from that group? Did I get a good look at all the members of that group? Who is this guy? Mm-hmm. Is he more grizzled? Has he been working out? And
he's a big dude.
He's a big dude. And Ellie has like this bloody nose, and she is like in this close quarters combat sequence in a barn filled with hay.
Yeah, you get some clues that it's probably more of a practice arena with the hay than maybe like she's in peril. They don't have that like murder. There's an intensity, but there's not a murderous intent.
There's not, but just kudos to the team that said, let's give Ellie a bloody nose here, because it makes you say, oh, this is real, because she wouldn't be bleeding if this was practice. And so they kind of fooled me. I was like, is it or is it not?
Well, they put the tension in the right spots
all
throughout this episode. And I really thought that was good, because there's these little sections where they kind of establish what they want, and then they teach you something about these characters. And really what I think this episode did really well is they teach you something about each of the characters, and then they pull them apart a little bit. And so you get to see how that tension stretches their relationship. And we get more insight into what individual characters are thinking and experiencing than we've ever really gotten in this episode. But to get to how we do that, we need to figure out what happens with this jiu-jitsu match. So I love that they let Ellie do jiu-jitsu. I think it's great context. I think it would be a great skill set for her to have. But what do you think?
Well, it also
shows her combat prowess.
Man, it does. And it really establishes, like, this is a different, more capable Ellie. Ellie is not merely the protected in this season. She's going to be aggressive. She is going to be spry. And, like, I think it also is an immediate rebuttal to those that said that this particular actor could not do this sort of thing. Like Bella saying, I just see Bella as like this 14-year-old version of Ellie. Well, they come out swinging, right?
She feels grown up immediately.
Immediately. It is not the same Ellie as season one, it feels.
Do you think it's because she's using her intimidating voice when they finally talk to each other?
Hey, yeah, I love that.
Her voice that she practiced on the cannibal cult.
On the cannibal cult. What did she call the guy? Buddy boy. Buddy boy.
I'll put one right between your eyes, buddy boy.
Right between my eyes, buddy boy.
And so we meet Jesse as a character. We don't meet him by name yet, but Jesse comes in. They're obviously sparring. I think it's great that they let Ellie learn jiu-jitsu, especially grappling. It gives some justification for how a character of her size would be able to endure like a close combat scenario. Jiu-jitsu is all about leverage. It's one of the best martial arts to learn if you're going to be mismatched in size with your opponent, because it's all about safety management and distance management. So jiu-jitsu says like there's like green and red zones. Okay, so I think this is going to be important that we need to know. I have family members who took jiu-jitsu, so I learned a lot about it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I got choked out a bunch. So
nice.
In jiu-jitsu, they have basically they say first, and this is basic self-defense from my understanding. I have no qualifications to talk about this, but it's going to be fun. Basically, they say that in the green zones, you're safe. But in the red zones, the distance from you, you're in trouble if you're in like physical danger. So a green zone would be like if somebody's 5 to 10 feet away from me, that's green, right? They can't reach me. They can't grab me. Jiu-jitsu says another green zone is very close to me because I know how to control the body. So you see her get in on her larger opponent, right? And she uses her small size to her advantage. And so what jiu-jitsu does is says, let's take the things that you're really good at and let's put the opponent in the position in the areas that they're weak, and then let's exploit those over and over again with slow, systematic control. So you see her get her legs in, she gets kind of that hook in, and then she starts working this arm bar, right? And so the whole point of an arm bar, and I think this is so emblematic of her character, and I love that they chose this martial art to include for her, is that the whole point of something like an arm bar is even if you're smaller than someone else, you're not arm wrestling, right? If you and I were to arm wrestle, you would kill me, right? You're a lot stronger than I am. You're a lot stronger than I am. Wade is a lot stronger than I am. Wade would beat me in arm wrestling. But if you had to use your arm, but I got to use my whole body, I would win. Even if I weighed 100 pounds, I would probably win if all you got to use was your arm.
With my arm. That makes sense.
So jiu-jitsu is all about putting their muscle, their small muscle, against your whole body. Notice how she locked his arm in, and she used her whole core to put pressure on his weak spot, that joint there, right? And she held that control. And so you see how she kept him close. Now she could have hit him. They made a point to talk about you got hit in the face. That's that red zone. So in jiu-jitsu, they say if they're too far away from you, if they can get a punch in, that's a red zone. So you got to keep them really close. So I think a martial arts fighting style that is all about mismatched size and cunning advantage and practice and ruthless execution is a perfect skill set for them to pepper in with Ellie here.
That is very well done, Evan. Like I learned a lot right then. But you're right. I mean, that's exactly what they showed because it immediately takes her and her smaller stature and turns it into something very believable. So immediately setting the pace for the entire season. That's excellent job, Evan.
Super well done by the team there. And if you are a jiu-jitsu fan or a jiu-jitsu expert and this is something that you know about or you have a family member that knows about this stuff, let's talk about it in the comments too. We'd love to hear about it because I've now exhausted my jiu-jitsu knowledge. I said armbar and then that's it.
I know armbar and that's my knowledge. So
there's something called an onoplata or something like that. I don't know. And then something called a neck crank. I don't know. It sounds like medieval torture device or like something that I should order at a restaurant. I don't know.
Put links in the comments, everybody. We'd love to learn more.
So this is a fun transition though because we open and here's Joel. Older Joel. Very clearly older Joel. Still very handsome.
Hard 5 years.
As described in the opener.
Described in the opener, yeah.
And he's working on some electrical stuff. And so it seems like
crafting table, it looked like to me.
Yeah, it looks like he was doing some embroidery.
I spend a lot of time at crafting tables in the games. So
that's true. That's true.
I was is this a callback?
Yeah, okay. He's really familiar with that. And so he's working on something, and it looks electrical. We don't know what it is, but a character walks in. We know this character later to be Dina. And I just want to say real quick, and I'll let you talk about Dina is played by Isabella Merced, and she is so charming right off the bat, so wonderfully Dina, that Dina, like, in the game, gives these kind of nice, witty, disarming comments, gives a wry smile, leaves some space for you to think about it, and then kind of keeps you guessing. She's a very dynamic character. She's smart. She's a fast talker. She's very clever. She's funny. So that's a hard character to play. It's hard to have all of those things in that total package. And we see that they did a great job with the casting for this character right off the bat. So Dina walks in and starts talking with Joel. What did we learn here and what's important about it?
Well, it begins with Dina kind of asking some disarming questions of like, well, teach me how to do that. But then she escalates and she's like, so why is she mad at you? And that immediately sets off all kinds of alarms. Like, okay.
Who is she? When she says, why is she mad at you? Who is she talking about?
Well, she's talking about Ellie. And that's, I don't believe that she says the name Ellie.
I don't think she says
it. It's just like, why is she mad at you? And we, the audience, just kind of understand, okay, that's Ellie. And immediately it's like, okay, there's some fallout to what happened 5 years before, but what's transpired. I mean, that's the big question there that nobody really knows, and we don't really get a full answer here in this episode. But the tension is there.
Well, and they have a good connection. I think that's the one of the things that sticks out to me in this section is that Joel and Dina have immediately good rapport. Joel is not someone to respect people quickly. Okay, so the people that Joel likes might be lower than the people that Joel trusts.
Do you think that, I mean, that's a good saying. That's a good phrase. Do you think that Joel has let his guard down more now that he's in the safety of Jackson?
So that's exactly what I think this posits to you as the viewer. I think that this, just in his openness, asks a lot of questions about his character, what has transpired in his life. Is he different? He looks a little different, but he's obviously not defensive. He seems more comfortable. He's put on a little weight compared to the previous seasons. His hair's a little grayer, but he has this warmth to him, and he seems like he's in dad mode like immediately, and he even references it directly, which I think we need to talk about.
Dad, granddad mode even. It kind of feels like fun uncle to Tommy and Maria's son. Just he's giving off a very, very different vibe, and I think that is just really cool. But yet everything is not great because there is this distance between him and Ellie.
But he's got some new language to describe it.
He does, and that to me, I mean, kind of getting into this next sequence or this next series of sequences, some of the changes and the methods of storytelling in this season versus, say, the game, and even in season 1, are just so profound. And so the conversations between Ellie and Tommy, for example, to let us know a little bit of Ellie's inner monologue, the conversation that we'll find with Joel and his therapist, these two kind of counter scenes to some reason. Both of our former primary protagonists have someone to talk to and somebody to have a confidant in. And I think that's a really cool way of kind of expressing these two. Whereas in the game, it's just like monologue as you're walking by. It's like, oh, Joel hated that.
The whole series explores trust. So all of season 1 is who you can trust, why you can't trust people, why you can't trust yourself. And then they build trust with each other, Ellie and Joel, like as things go on. But they're really the only two characters that we start and end with, that we run the whole show with. We're going to have so many more characters and so many more possibilities for relationships. And you can learn a lot about the way that people act around each other from their environment too. And so this is clearly a safer environment, and it's softened Joel's character a little bit here.
Yeah, I think that we see that throughout. Joel is he is not necessarily a man on a mission anymore. And something about that mission of protection and learning to care for Ellie in season 1, it's just kind of neutralized a little bit. It's not that he's weaker necessarily, but he's softer.
His mission is construction, and contractors were the most respected.
They were the most respected according to him in season 1. So.
Well, I think it's good to see his skill sets be represented here too, because he's getting back to who he was professionally, and I think he's also getting back to who he was psychologically and emotionally. I think they run in tandem.
Isn't that just so interesting, though? Because in season 1, it was all about survival. And, I mean, if you were to look at Maslow's hierarchy, right? Moving from physiological needs of survival, moving into security and safety, and then finally ending with belonging. Well, we pick up here with these ideas of actualization. What does it mean to have self-esteem and to be able to contribute to the society? And once you get past those dire lower levels and you feel, secure in your belongingness, you're able to really flourish. And I think that we're seeing that. It's what the Greeks called eudaimonia, right? It's the human flourishing. And we see Jackson as the place for that, and yet it's not all flourishing.
And we've talked a lot about this in previous episodes, so we won't revisit it, but I do want to highlight it, is that these are little microcosms of what we endure as individuals as well, where yes, obviously if our physical safety is threatened, then, we're going to feel one way or the other, but we don't have zombie hordes chasing after us in our lives. The things that make us feel insecure in our lives, that make us feel like our safety or our future or economic security are threatened, those are still part of that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like, where am I going to live? Am I going to have to move? Am I going to have to get a new job? What's going to happen? These are all things that are this same reaction that we have before we can get to these kind of higher functions. And so when we have a disruption in our lives with a job or with family or illness or even just change in relationships, those things bump us back down sometimes because we can feel insecure. And so until we really feel like it's going to be stable, you can feel a little bit unmoored. And so we get to experience what it looks like for these characters to be more stable and moored emotionally here.
Yeah, gosh, such a great point. And wow, when you were going through season 1, it was really hard to think of a way for humanity to flourish, as they seem to be doing in Jackson. But I mean, that's the beauty of a society, and a society built on these family systems, all coming together to contribute to, I guess, the greater good of the community. Just
They
really interesting.
They still have challenges, which we're going to find out. And they have a lot of challenges, but the point is that there's always going to be challenges to progress, right? Like, if progress was just easy, if improvement was easy, we would probably do it a lot more often. But it takes a lot of intentionality, and it takes a lot of organization to really change and improve, especially in society. And so they're just moving up their own settlements, kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They're moving from a small shanty town into a town that's more developed. They're trying to put down some infrastructure. And we even find out that they're actually trying to create capacity to be able to take in refugees. And I think that's pretty emblematic of how safe, strong communities can do good work, but you have to have a feeling of safety first. In your communities before, if we can feel like we can really reach out and help at scale. And so when we feel disrupted, that becomes really difficult because it also disrupts the way that we organize to support each other. And so that's why things like the apocalypse are really challenging. But we also have collective traumas and challenges in, our different countries and things that happen economically and in our world. And so I think it's going to be pretty neat to, well, maybe not neat, but it's going to be an interesting thought experiment to walk along with these characters and this community as they kind of experience those disruptions interpersonally with each other and societally, because I think there's going to be a lot to talk about that theory of that kind of polis, that flourishing that you talked about here with that. Was it Aristotle that you were talking?
It was Aristotle. Yeah, you're right. That's it. We deep dove into that through the entire Lecture Play series. Well, speaking of Maslow and society and all that kind of stuff, well, this, as you said, Jackson does have a series of needs that need to be addressed regularly in order to keep the peace, in order to maintain the possibility of those higher ends of things. And that's where Joel and Ellie are both finding their place in community. And so they're still struggling to secure that sense of belongingness, moving into esteem and even self-actualization. For Ellie, I think this is really interesting. She is chomping at the bit to be a protector on patrol rather than be the protected. In fact, she is fighting against the idea that she is to be protected or punches held back or any of that. And so she's out with Tommy. She's trying to learn sniper skills, pushing to join the patrols, and he finally relents and does so, even though Joel would hate that idea because Joel wants her to be protected. And this is a great classic parental figure and 19-year-old, I'm becoming independent sort of thing. I mean, I work with freshmen every day of my life, and it's that struggle of staying connected but disconnected from home. I mean, it's a challenge. And
don't go home till Thanksgiving.
Don't go home. And then when you do go home for Thanksgiving, your parents might have changed your room into something else. No lie, I had a student that went home for Thanksgiving. She came back the first week of December, and she said, my parents turned my former room into a dog bedroom. And it was like a shrine to the dog and like all the dog beds and all this
I
stuff.
get that.
I was like, where do you sleep? She was like, well, when I go home, I'm in the guest bedroom because they told me I'm now a guest. I was like,
I sleep in the dog bed with the dog.
With the dog.
Because that's where I live. That's my
Fair
old
enough.
room. So we do find one little clue before we jump into one of the needs that Jackson has. And that need, we find out, is psychological. They have psychological needs. And Dina references a therapist to Joel, and Joel kind of admits that he's been seeing a therapist here, but he says not to tell anybody. And so there's something that can happen, especially around like stigma with therapy, mental health. That's something that is really prevalent that we have to be really active in understanding and anticipating. It's there's a huge stigma around getting help, especially professional help, that we would need help. And so this show opens the window to that. They bring that up, and he basically says like, yes, I am. It's really helping. Don't tell anyone.
Well, he says something that is so therapy coded, right? He and Dina are talking about the ins and outs of their relationship with Ellie, and he says, I can't hold myself responsible for another person's state. And I was like, I'm going to jot that down real quick. Emblazon it and sell it at Michael's or something like that. That is like that is such a billboard for like a workplace.
Well, and we find out very quickly where he learned that from.
Yeah, that's it. And so this, I think, is the best addition to the Last of Us universe so far.
Okay,
because if ever a universe needed a therapist, it was The Last of Us.
Okay, so I'm going to give us a little bit of context here for this next scene that's going to help us. So we meet a character named Gail, who we find out is a therapist, who is played by Catherine O'Hara. Wonderful actress.
Moira Rose.
Amazing job here. And this is not a character from the game. So I'm going to, in rapid fire, give you only the minimal necessary context to understand why and how we got here. Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Gail is not a character in the game at all. Gail references that she is married to a character named Eugene. Eugene is a character in the video game. Eugene is a character who is 73 years old who went on patrol around Jackson, who has a stroke in the game. In the show, Gail says that her husband was shot, and we find out actually who he was shot by later in this conversation. So we'll leave that as like a little tidbit for us to get to later. And so basically they put Gail in the show to be able to explore in a more clear way what some of the characters were dealing with and to explore some of the more deeper psychological concepts of Jackson and the community, and to have a format. And I think it's just a great excuse to get Catherine O'Hara on your show.
I mean, any excuse, really. I mean, it's just going to up the quality.
So Gail, not in the game, married to Eugene. Eugene is not a main character in the game. You just see a picture of him, and he dies of a stroke in the game. We find out he was murdered, so they're obviously going to do something more with that, and they're using that to get Gail to us.
He
and
grew
we're so
like weed, right? Like he was like the town weed dealer in the game,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
And that's alluded to here when he's like giving her.
It is, yeah. He was the supplier. He was the plug. He was the bud tender, if you will, of Jackson.
Yep. Yes, he was.
All words you're very familiar with,
all of us, yeah.
And so Joel walks in here to start his therapy session, and I just want you to just. All I want to do is just talk about every little thing that they talked about.
It's so hard not to, because it's such a good therapy session and it's so unconventional. And that to me is the brilliance of it, because they've had like 4 or 5 sessions up to this, and she, as any good therapist does, cuts the crap, and she's like, you've been lying to me. And so she's been drinking this morning to have some
she
liquid
offers
confidence.
him whiskey
She offers him whiskey, which
session.
is not orthodox. As somebody that works at least on the peripheral, I would say mental health adjacent.
She says
college
she's not
campuses.
supposed to.
She says she's not supposed to. That's just not very orthodox, right? And so I'm just watching. Here's what's interesting, Evan, and for those of you in the audience that don't know, all of my stuff. I work in religious life. I work in student life at the University of Alabama. I'm faculty there. All this kind of stuff. And so when I say that I'm mental health adjacent, that's kind of what I mean. I do some chaplain work. I do some light counseling, kind of 3 and then refer. That's what I do. But because of that, when I go to see a therapist, I have to see a specialist, a therapist who sees therapists.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Oh, yeah, you do. Because you're technically clergy, right?
Yeah, because their bullcrap meter is really, really high. And so they can like shoot it straight with me. And they're like, you're lying to me. And so this is why I was like up out of my seat, excited. I was like, she could be my therapist. I love this woman.
Does your therapist regularly tell you that you're lying to them?
Well, that's between me and my therapist, I'll say.
We'll talk about that offline.
But I will say there have been times in my life when they're like,
Okay.
I think we can press further. That's what they'll say.
That is the nice way of saying you're lying.
Yeah,
so
it.
here's how I want to try and analyze their conversation.
Yeah.
What do you think mattered to Joel about that conversation?
I think that Gail bringing up her own family dynamic and her concern and her loss kind of mirrored for him vulnerability.
Yeah.
And it created some exposure to like, okay, I can hear what you're saying and what you're going through, and it deeply resonates with this very human, non-protected side of me, and it coaxes me to want to be real. And you see it on his face.
Yeah.
He begins to tear up, he begins to shake a little bit. And it's not just like my actions have had consequences, but I understand, like, even if I did it for the right reasons, it was for the same reasons she feels loss here. So I think there's a unity in their sadness and grief that has led them to different actions. And so I think that's probably what hit, but I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think she's the exact kind of therapist somebody like Joel would need, right? Somebody who is going to really cut you open and kind of wring it out of you. But she's not going to manipulate you necessarily, but she knows that he needs to be pushed. And she seems really... she has this cold burn to her when we meet the character that I think is something that Joel can relate to. I mean, Joel respects honesty, directness, and Joel has profound respect for anyone who is good at their job. Yeah. Even if it's a job that he doesn't understand, throughout the story, if someone is capable, he has a lot of respect for them. So I think Joel has respect for Gail. And I think that is what allows them to have the frankness of conversation that they have. Let's flip it on the other side. What do you think of this Gail conversation? And there's two parts, because they have two conversations. They have the opening conversation and they start their therapy, and then she starts to admit that she's been drinking all day, and then it turns into it. And I mean, she is Joel numbing from season 1, episode 1, when he wakes up in the bed and then there's not somebody there, and then he's taking the pills and he's drinking. I mean, she is mirroring his behavior to him to help him deal with his own stuff. It's this weird spiral that I think is really interesting. So what do you make of Gail's motivations here? Why would she have two tiers of conversations, and why did she talk about wanting to be direct and not lying in the way that she really chewed on her words for a couple minutes and really led us into her internal monologue here? She's trying to figure out how to talk to Joel. What is important here to Gail? What matters to Gail at this point?
So she begins by saying, it's my birthday and I woke up sad. And one of those things wasn't true. She said, I didn't really wake up sad, but I did wake up with this chip on my shoulder. And so she's dealing with some anger. And so she has something that she needs to say and that he needs to hear. And she wrestles with it in front of him. And then says, you can't heal something unless you're able to say it out loud. And I don't want to say it, but that means that I have to say it. And that entire sequence, I was like, oh my gosh, I just need to like go confess or something. Like I feel like I want that same kind of healing, but that sort of layered sort of thing with herself. And then to finally spout it out and to say, I miss Eugene and I know you shot him in the face. And like, she just kind of rips the Band-Aid off. And she was like, and I am angry at you. No, I hate you for it. But saying it now, I think that we can work on it. I want to forgive you. I can't, but I think that I can move past it now that I've said it. And it's like, holy smokes. Like, she's actively therapying herself as a model for him.
Because she doesn't have anybody perceived, it seems. She just has the bottle.
She does.
And which is getting low.
It's getting low because she's been drinking all day. But I do think that there's something just beautiful about the way that she's being vulnerable to Joel, knowing that Joel respects and needs that kind of thing, that kind of directness. Let's not beat around the bush. Let's just say it like it is. Because he's dealing with a 19-year-old who's acting like a 19-year-old kid to their parents of like, I'm not going to be direct. I'm just going to be broody and I'm going to be mad and all that kind of stuff. So,
but really all he's dealing with is himself.
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, that's all we're ever dealing with, right?
His ability to be emotionally available in
Again,
any capacity, he's made progress.
Right,
We know based on his conversation with Dina and his conversation with Gail, from a benchmarking perspective, seems like he's made a lot of progress to me.
9 times out of 10, I mean, it's exactly what he said. It comes straight from Gail. We can't hold ourselves responsible for another person's state. So often, our mental conflicts with other people, it's really about ourselves. And yeah, they're doing wrong. But I 100% believe people can change. I also 100% believe that people cannot change other people. So you got to deal with what you got to deal with, and create boundaries and bridges as you can.
Well, I think that all of that is probably going to be expanded on even more. I think they've opened a lot of doors here, and I'm interested to see where they go.
I just need Gail to come back every episode. I need therapy corner with Gail in my post-apocalyptic wasteland.
Come on down to Gail's therapy corner. We got egg timers, we got weed, we got booze,
whiskey.
And this is not the episode to listen to in the car with your kids, apparently.
Apparently not.
It's a mature game. So there's one other part of their conversation that I think is great, because there's 3 sections of something that's happening in the background of this episode that I think are really interesting. And it's them building Dina's character. So Dina's character has, I think, 3 distinct moments, because Dina, I think, is the character that probably gets built the most this episode. We get a lot of reveals from Joel, we get a lot from Gail, right. But I think Dina is the focus of this episode. I think she is the main character here, because she's in almost every scene, and she's talked about in every scene, because Gail and Joel talk about Dina. Joel talks about how much Dina had meant to him, how charming she was, and so I don't know if we even learned Dina's name until the conversation in the room with Gail. So the withholding of little information like that, and then just the sprinkling of who she is, I think adds to her mystery and charm. Because when someone's charming, if you perceive them as charming, then that's fine, right? But if your buddy doesn't perceive them as charming, then it doesn't matter. But when somebody who's charming's reputation goes before them, when someone is nice and they're engaging and they can connect with people well, people will tell you to expect it. They will talk about it.
That's true.
They will talk about what it means. And he says, not like Dina, she's warm to me. She wants to learn. We have a connection, right? Dina has won Joel over.
That's true.
Let me say that again. Dina, we just met, has won Joel over.
Yeah. That's huge.
What does that mean? So you remember,
which speaks to Joel's softness as well, and his I don't know, his guard is down. So.
And what happens? And what happens when Joel talks effusively of people? It's almost always in this show. It's transference.
It is.
And so they are telling us there are themes that are going to be explored and lived on with other characters here. Yeah. And they're doing it in the same way that they have done in the first season, but they're telling us now. So I want us to make note of that, because that's something that I think that we need to explore. And we're going to get into more of who Dina's character is, but I think that was, and we'll get into it on our the best of us. So I won't spoil my best of us, but it might be about the way that they're building Dina's character.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So we get through the therapy conversation. I feel like I could have gone much longer with that.
Did you watch? If you ever watched the show Shrinking on Apple TV?
Oh, one of my favorites. Yeah,
that was just an episode of Shrinking
in miniature
with mushrooms.
Fair.
That kill people.
Great show.
So when we leave the therapy space, we know that there's going to be some patrolling happening here. And for the sake of time, I think we probably need to move quickly as to what happens. We know some of these characters are just side characters, probably. They're not going to be a ton of development. So we don't want to spend too much time unless they decide to re-emphasize them. But when they go on patrol, Ellie is at her house, and Dina comes over to get her to go on patrol. And this is the start of a series of will they, won't they, semi-intimate interactions, kind of like we had in the mall with Riley, from the flashback episode of season 1.
Very reminiscent.
What do you make of the way that they're hanging out together? And talk to us about how they get out to go on patrol here.
Well, I think that it's I don't know, it's just a vignette of Ellie is growing up, and she's developing new relationships, and it is kind of that 19-year-old awkwardness of like, what is this? But Dina is also like her best friend. One thing that's really interesting is they're talking about this big community event, the New Year's ball or whatever, New Year's event that's happening that evening. And so Dina asks Ellie, are you going to the dance? And she's like, maybe. It's like, are you taking anyone? It's like, no, I'm not. And Dina says, well, you could take Kat. She's the other one. And it's like, oh, okay. So this is, I don't even know what to say to that. And but they kind of joke a little bit. So there's a really interesting rapport between these two characters that's really nice. And so there's some vulnerability. Ellie and Dina are at least close enough to joke and rib each other a little bit like that. While they're out on patrol, they are the newbies that are in this group. And so they happen across this bear that has been mauled. And it's really kind of an odd thing. But Dina and Ellie are given the task to go into like this one building to just scout it out. And this was a really cool thing, not because they were going out to hunt clickers, but because Ellie and Dina are communicating via sign language to coordinate their attacks. And it's really kind of interesting and evocative of their friendship, of their closeness. And I was just like, gosh, this is just a cool way to show, hey, these two are really tight. They're really close, and they get each other. So I loved all that.
I think we do learn a lot about the nature of their relationship. And I think that is the primary purpose of this arc.
Yeah.
And it drives some plot. But for example, I think that it's important that when they're leaving Ellie's place, Ellie lets Dina help her put on her coat and like zip it up. So
that's a good point.
Ellie does not. Who has she let help her do anything? So I think that's the action is more of a clue to how much they trust each other and how close they are than anything that they could say. And I think that they did a good job leveraging the work that they did to build up that part of Ellie's character. And then they just pull that thread so that it's believable that there's trust. So they can get close quickly. And I think it feels valid.
I think that that's exactly right. So with this whole sequence here, I don't think that it's one big dramatic gesture, but it's like a dozen little gestures that culminate in, oh, they're close. There's this friendship, and Ellie is vulnerable with like one person, and that's good. They're
joking around.
So they're joking around,
and when they're joking around.
What does Dina say? The barbecue. She says the barbecue joke, and I was like, well, that's the way to Ellie's heart, like right there. Just say a dumb pun.
Yeah.
And
when
she
they
like, did you make that up?
Stabbing each other in the throats like before they kill the clickers.
Yeah,
right,
that
exactly.
whole deal. So that was really good. So
did you get a nice bottle reference where you can throw the bottle to distract?
I thought about it, and I was like, would I prefer a bottle or a brick? And I'm a brick man personally.
Yeah,
but,
I'm a brick. I'm a brick main. That's me.
Brick main.
Gotta have it. But they did have it was a Bud Light with the old label, so always nostalgic to go back and see the old labels on things from. Things. So that's it. There's a little bit of this time capsule thing, and so they dispatch a couple clickers. Ellie uses some of her jiu-jitsu.
She does. Yeah, thought that was great.
And as they dispatch the clickers, there's not much worry that anything bad is going to happen to them. It's pretty routine. The scene has more focus on the world that was than actually the threat of the clickers. Yeah. And I think that is done really well where the camp. I said I wasn't going to do this, and I'm going to do it on this one scene. Okay, I said specifically
you can't help yourself.
I said specifically to Wade, I'm going to try not do a ton of like this different stuff, but I'm gonna you know what, I'm going to give myself one per episode.
I think that's a great allowance.
Okay, this segment needs a name. What is this? Just
Evan's eccentricities.
Evan's eccentricities. All right, welcome to another episode of Evan's eccentricities, where we're going to talk about why it was so cool the way that they shot the scene with the flashlight and Ellie in the upstairs of the grocery, okay? And I'll do it really, really quick. So the light is an interesting source to draw your focus and your attention, but then they use the space behind her to frame like the spookiness of the mystery of what could be. But rather than using the horror tension where you're worried about what's coming behind her, the light makes you more curious about the different things that she's shining it on. So the paperwork, the different things from the past, the employee of the month, one of which is a dog. So you'll notice as she kind of does a 360 all throughout the room. She comes in a window and then she goes to the right. So she starts on this kind of pillar on the right. So she shines this light behind her all the way around the room. And the way the camera tracks, it disrupts the kind of horror movie feeling, I think, because you want to feel tension based on like the camera position, but something about the way that she's exploratory and curious with the light tells you that she's not worried about the clicker. So you don't need to be worried about the clicker either.
Okay.
Her focus is on, like, she's interested in the dog. She's interested in what's happened in the past. She knows she's going to get to the clicker. She throws the bottle, she steps over the glass, she knocks it out. And I think it's an interesting thing, and I think it was done visually in a way that that's a fun way to tell that part of her story. And she talks to Dina about it. She tries to tell Dina about the employee of the month picture, but then there's some structural integrity issues that I think Joel would take issue with as a contractor.
As a contractor, for sure. So Ellie falls through the floor, and boy, that part caught me right off guard. I think that was like, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I jumped.
Like, even though I was like, this is a weird camera angle, that was my eccentricity. I was like, this is a weird camera angle. Suddenly,
you want your own segment? You get your own segment, mister.
Wade's weirdness, I guess. That we call it. So, she falls right through the floor. And I was like, oh my gosh. So then comes the part that was the most gameplay oriented for me. Having just finished The Last of Us Part 1.
Okay.
There's one type of infected that I hate more than all of the others, and they are the stalkers, because they're freaking smart. And so she faces her first ever stalker. And
First one we've seen
in the show. And so this one, unlike the ones that kind of lumber at you or even run at you or can't see, but they hear and they run at you that way, this one seems to be aware of you. And it has some cognition where it's able to think through and strategize and even deceive you.
It understands your perception.
It understands your perception. And that makes it infinitely more threatening. And Ellie isn't really prepared for this. So anyway, she even at one point yells at it because she flashes the flashlight at it, says, "Run at me, come on," or whatever. And it doesn't. And it kind of runs away, it scurries away. So Ellie's a little perplexed with this, even having faced her own fair share of these things.
Okay, you ready?
Infected, yeah.
And this is why we talked about it. They use the exact same technique with her light in the bigger open space, except with the same framing, you're afraid because she's afraid. Because behind her, you're afraid of what's behind her because she's afraid of what's behind her. Yes. But we just learned how she handles the focus with the light. And so they taught you about her there, and then they make you feel in danger because you know she feels in danger because they showed you what it looks like when she doesn't feel in danger. And so they show, don't tell. And I think it's a great way to build the character. And that's why that is Evan's eccentricity for this episode.
And that's what we call an alley-oop. That was completely unexpected. You knocked it out of the park. That was great. So, I mean, that's exactly it. And so the stalker kind of outsmarts her, attacks her, gets on top of her, bites her stomach.
Yep, right in the tum-tum.
She gets another bite. And I was like, is Dina going to see this? Is this how she's going to like realize that Ellie is infected and immune here? I was like, oh my gosh. But no, Dina did not see this.
Yeah.
But Ellie's bitten. And oh gosh, we've got to talk about this. We don't have to, but I feel compelled to. Because what was it? You can't heal something unless you're able to say it out loud. Like Gail said. When the stalker has the little tendrils out the nose, I was
nose cavity.
Nose cavity, right. And so like, you know that's happening again, like Tess in season 1. The little kiss heard round the world. But then in this episode, the tendril thing bites Ellie, and then with the little teeth mark, it's got new tendrils coming out of Ellie's belly. I was grossed out by that.
I really don't like those.
I don't like that at all. That makes me really
And they use
upset.
it so sparingly.
So
that it's this like body horror.
It's a problem.
Like, disgusting. Yeah. Oh, it's just disgusting.
It's a real sad problem.
I think its purpose is to make your skin crawl, and I would say for this one, it accomplishes that purpose.
It sure did. And so anyway, she disposes of the stalker, reunites with Dina, and they're safe, and they're going to go back where they are interrogated by the Jackson Five, the Jackson Council.
I called them the Council of Elders.
I love it. I think there's like 8 of them, but still.
8 or 9. Yeah, I like the Jackson 9.
The Jackson 9, where they're retelling this story with the stalker, and Ellie's like, "This one was smart, it's strategized," and it's like, "Oh, what are we up against?"
And they're like, "Dina, was that true?" And Dina's like, "Oh yeah, 100%."
I saw it. It was so scary. I've never been so scared in my life. And they're like, "Dina, you're such a liar." But Ellie, we get it. Anyway, it's New Year's Eve. Let's go party.
Well, no, I think there's more to talk about in the Council of Elders here. Just really quick. So they establish, should we do anything about it? What's going on? No big deal. But they have a conversation at the end, and there's a quote that is said, and it's talking about perception, right? And we've talked about we talked about perception, and that the stalker perceives you. Like that's the difference in the stalker, is that it has some cognition. And it knows that you have perception. It understands that you are a thinking creature and that it can act accordingly, right? So the quote that is shared by a character that we don't know, and it's kind of said off screen and then cut to, like kind of like how it would happen in a meeting if you've been in meetings like that. It says, reality is nothing more than a collective hunch. Because somebody said they have a hunch. They're like, I think we need to look into this. I have a hunch. Reality is nothing more than a collective hunch. And they even reference a quote for Lily Tomlin, who's an actress and author and comedian who is just delightful. And so she has that quote. Reality is nothing more than a collective hunch. I'm interested in what you make of that quote. And part of why we want to emphasize it is because the folks who are making this show like to, from interviews, they say they like to have big central themes that they kind of explore. So when they drop specific quotes in like that, it can be a breadcrumb for us to do a little more investigation as to why they would include that, and maybe why they would include that in the way that they do here. What do you make of this quote? Why does it matter, and how is it relevant to this episode?
Well, you actually found it to be a bit more compelling immediately. And the more that I'm thinking about it, the more I'm excited about it. So I would be curious about what you are thinking this quote means for this season, this episode. Like, what is it prepping us for?
Yeah, I'll try not to get into too much conjecture.
Yeah.
I think so far, I'm doing a lot of like real-time processing right now.
Yeah.
So far, I think that they're exploring a lot of like the perception of individual connection. So what I'm seeing here is that they've got like 100 bungee cords, right? That we started this episode with, and they attach one end to one character and one end to another character, right? And then they let those characters move apart and contract, and we get to examine their personalities through that. But they've done it with a bunch of different characters. So there's, rather than just two characters that are moving through a linear world, like season 1.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get a lot more social dynamics and a lot more complexity.
That's a really good point.
The relational dynamics. And so I think that one of the things that they want to explore, my guess, but one of the things that it seems like they want to explore is the nature of perception in like relationships. And like, yes, like a hunch and that kind of stuff. Goodness. Yeah, I think intuition maybe they want to explore. But there's something about that reality is nothing more than a collective hunch. That the world and our perception of it and our collective perception of if things are good, bad, scary, whatever, is actually also kind of part of that.
That's great. That's terrific, Evan.
But the hunch word has me kind of hung up a little bit too, though. So like, are we going to talk about like intuition and like the subconscious? And are we even, and I don't want to talk about it at all, are we even delving into, with the cordyceps as a mirror, the idea that humanity has a collective unconscious? You're not allowed to say anything about it.
I'm not a word. Here's what I love about this. Because again, the more that you have just unpacked that a little bit, this idea of community and factions gathered and united around their particular belief systems. I like so I'm a religious studies guy. right? I'm always looking at communities and how they make meaning of the world around them. And sometimes they do that through religion. Sometimes they do that through philosophy, psychology. Sometimes they do it by political ideology. But everybody's trying to make meaning of the world around them. And we tend to gravitate to communities that share or give words to the thoughts and emotions that we're not able to really articulate. Okay, we always tend to gravitate toward those things. And sometimes we can kind of get on the fringe and listen to others and kind of adopt some new things, but more often than not, we get into factions or kind of this tribalistic sort of mindset. And so this phrase of saying reality, this idea of a collective hunch, it's demeaning to the opinions, but it's also equalizing. It's saying, regardless of whether you're right or wrong, your belief in the hunch is what is the uniting factor. And so it really makes this season, and we already know from this episode that there's a setup of the Jackson community, Abby's community, whoever Isaac in Seattle is, and then whatever else may be out there.
I consider the Cordyceps a community as well. I think they are a community, a faction in the show.
So what is the guiding principle or the collective hunch of each one of these communities? I think that is a really interesting question for this season.
Okay. I really like that.
It's really good.
What is each community's
collective hunch? And how do they bristle against each other?
Yeah.
And the preferred reality of one, how does that live at odds with the preferred reality of the next? And I think that's the core of this season.
Well, what a great question to ask, and what an interesting way
to encourage yourself. What a great question to ask.
No, you asked.
So good.
You asked.
You really did. I mean,
okay,
you started
whatever.
It,
so this to use the post-apocalyptic world to continue to examine competing ideologies in the way that they perceive that their system is the most real. And knowing kind of where the story goes a little bit, that will be very interesting because we do that in a very transient way in season 1, but we are at a much slower pace here in season 2, and I'm really looking forward to it because I had a lot of ground to cover. Okay, we gotta move because we gotta move. So
it's so good.
The council dismisses because it's New Year's, surprise, and we have a band that's playing. There's a big dance that's happening. Dina is the star of the show. Yeah. There's an interaction with a character that we have had some time with, but we haven't spoken about yet, and that would be Jesse, played by Young Mazzino. I think I've pronounced that correctly. Young Mazzino, who does a great job. So Jesse in the game is he's a character that gets stuff done. He is capable. He has leadership qualities. He's reliable. He's responsible, but he's also charming and funny and witty. Yeah. That's a difficult character to play, and especially because we find out that he and Dina had dated in the past. Yeah. So there's going to be some interactions there. Ellie and Jesse are talking at the bar as they're all watching Dina kind of dance and be a bit of the belle of the ball, right?
Yeah.
What did you make of their interactions? Talk about how great of a job that he's doing with the character of Jesse and how excited it makes you, or how excited it makes me for the rest of the season.
Well,
they just nailed those characters.
Just nailed
it's essential.
All of these characters, and it's so good. The casting is so good, and Jesse is believable. He is charismatic. The chemistry that he has with all of the other characters, I think it's really, really starting out strong. And so Ellie is very watchful here. She's got eyes for Dina. I mean, it's obvious in this moment. And Jesse kind of sees it too, but it's like, what's all this happening? Their dynamic. I'm so curious what Jesse is going to add to the mix. Each one of these characters, to some degree, pulls out a new strand of Ellie's psyche, a strand of...
bungee cords.
Yeah, bungee cords, sure. The ability to
Tension.
Really see her in different scenarios, romantic, friend, family, all these things, aggressor. I'm really thrilled to see that. Dina comes over, though, and this chemistry is really electric because you've got Dina who is just enraptured and also tipsy and lively, but has eyes for Ellie in this moment. And it's like, whoa, this is really pretty cool for Ellie and for, like, it's just normal 19-year-old stuff.
Yeah,
in a post-apocalyptic world. And it's cool.
I think they do a good job. She doesn't seem like sloppy. She seems relaxed, and she doesn't seem out of control. No. She just seems like her inhibitions are lowered. So she seems like she's dancing a little more freely. She's saying things that, maybe she wouldn't normally say that way. She's feeling a little courageous, but she's not out of her mind. She's very much in herself. Her actions are genuine. I think that's important to kind of say here, because that's important to the scene as well. So Dina comes up and tells Ellie in no uncertain terms, it's time to dance.
Let's dance. And the song gets slower, so they begin to dance. Some playful banter here and there, and then they share a kiss.
It's a great first kiss. Like, the way that Dina kissed, because she initiated the kiss, and Ellie, kind of participated a little bit, but, kind of moved only her upper lip. But then when she realized what was happening and realized that it was something that maybe she was open to, she then kind of reciprocates a little bit more. I mean, it felt very like a very genuine kind of first kiss experience. Yeah. But I think that they build up to that point really well too, because they have conversations about, everybody's really jealous of you, and everybody's looking at you. Yeah. And Dina says, no. Do you think they're looking at you because they're jealous of maybe what's going on here? And it creates a bit of a commotion. But I think the most important thing is, I think their connection is good. It's believable. Yeah. I'm excited to see more interactions and where they take that story. But there's a bit of a disruption here.
Yeah, so somebody in the party interrupts with some kind of homophobic comments, essentially saying, hey, this is a family place. And then offers a choice word for them. And at this point,
it's a slur.
Joel comes in swinging, right? Yeah. And out of nowhere, like RKO out of nowhere from Joel. and looks at Ellie and says, hey, are you all right? After he sends him away. And Ellie is just like, I don't need you to protect me, right? And Joel kind of tucks his tail between his legs and leaves. Heart-wrenching in some ways, because his heart is in the right place, and yet Ellie can take care of herself, but it's that protected mindset again. It's complicated, right?
It's a complicated situation, but you've talked about archetypes a lot here, right? And that in different times, Ellie is operating inside and outside the role of protector, right? Yep. To what extent do you make some of their interpersonal conflict to be when they're trying to assume the same archetype at the same time? So when Ellie wants to be assertive protector for herself, but Joel steps in to be assertive protector as well, that seems to be the nature of some of their previous disruption as well, where they're not sure how to kind of navigate that relationship. They did great with father-daughter. They did great with cargo and van. They did great. They did great with those things. But when Ellie's trying to learn about a specific thing, even when Joel's teaching her, they have some tender moments, but then that's when they seem to have the biggest flare-ups, is when the strongest parts of those archetypes. Ellie wants to assert her independence. It's some of the only language Joel knows. Joel is desperately trying to learn new language to be able to connect with Ellie, which is very, very sweet. But whenever they're using the same language, it doesn't typically end well. There's always conflict.
There is. And I mean, part of this, yes, it's dramatic because it's a TV show and post-apocalyptic and the stakes are really high. But a lot of this is just a dramatization of what most people go through when they're detaching from family as they grow up. Now, there's a lot more loaded sort of things here, but it's certainly reminiscent. When your parents are fighting your battles when you're a grown adult, and it's like, stop it. Their heart is in the right place. But this is mine now, and I'm going to fight this battle. I'm going to call the professor. I'm going to go settle this at work. I'm going to deal with this person that's giving me beef or whatever.
And that's a messy process outside
on
of the
best of days, but in the apocalypse, and then the survivor's guilt and all that kind of stuff lingers from season 1, and it really is explosive, and that's what we're seeing here.
Okay, if you were to give just real quick one good piece of advice for someone who watched that scene and is like, I am struggling connecting with that parental figure or a parent in my life. I've had those interactions. This is painful. What would you say are some good, hey, think about this as a way to kind of bridge that healing? Because I think in a lot of ways that we want to talk about that healing process in tandem. Evan. We can't solve it all right now, but I think what we see is Joel has learned that in order to start it, he has to find new language.
I'm going to reference the show again because the show has given us some pretty good directions for this. Number one, you cannot hold yourself responsible for another person's state. Okay. And that's a big thing. Like, yes, your parents are going to feel this way, or your kid is going to feel this way. And to a certain degree, you got to kind of let them. And then you have to let yourself, who is it? Mel Robbins, in her book, The Let Them Theory, right? Really kind of hot item this semester.
I'm not familiar with that. You're going to have to.
Okay, yeah, Mel Robbins, she wrote a book called The Let Them Theory, which essentially says if somebody is doing something or wants to do something, simply let them, okay? And it's like, okay, like I'm going to allow you to have that opinion. I'm going to allow you not to go with me to this thing that you said you were going to, but now you're bailing on. I'm going to let you sleep in when you said that we were going to get breakfast. I'm going to let you. Because when you let them, you're saying that's out of my control, so you can let myself respond in kind. How am I being true to myself even when you weren't true to your word, or whatever it is? It's fascinating stuff.
I can't wait to read more about that.
Read more, watch the TED Talk. She's been on the Today Show like 3 times this semester, and I'm like hooked. I show it in some of my classes. I'm like really good. So
if you don't know this about Wade, he watches the Today Show every morning.
Since Katie Couric, baby, like my entire life.
One of my favorite back pocket Wade facts is that Wade watches he watches the Today Show. He reads and he watches the Today Show.
I do. That's me. So the first thing is I can't hold myself responsible for another person's state. The second thing is if you want to make it better, again, I'm going to use Gail's words. You can't heal something unless you're able to say it out loud.
I love that they gave all the tools that the characters need to solve the conflict, and for Gail us to think about that conflict in our lives.
Gail is working us out of a job, right? I mean, we talk about these things. We're like, let's give you some pointers. They're like, we're going to cut out Wade and Evan. These are the pointers you need to hear from Gail.
Catherine O'Hara can take whatever she wants.
She can. It's all yours.
It's all yours. Whatever you want. Whatever we want. Everything we have is yours, Catherine. So what if Catherine O'Hara leaves a comment? Okay, I'm on my way.
I'll retire. I will retire from podcasting and everything.
If Catherine O'Hara leaves a comment on the YouTube, you'll retire from everything. Like just full retire, like you move to a home. And
end on top. That's it. Like you'll never hear from Prof again.
Yeah. Oh, well. Okay.
Unless her comment is, keep doing this. Look forward to next week.
Okay.
Invite me on. That's the only way I'll keep doing it.
That's what you want. Okay. Well, I mean, I think that's great. So this episode has given us everything that we need to start to explore the concepts that it wants the characters. It's asking the characters to explore with each other, but it's also given us everything we need to also know what the future tension is for the rest of the season, because we see that the pipes that Dina has referenced that we haven't talked about are rooted a little bit, but we find out that wait, those roots seem to be moving. Yes. Those roots look remarkably similar to cordyceps. Oh my word. So the cordyceps.
Tendrils,
Yep, the cordyceps are great escape tunneling into Jackson.
It's true.
And so the camera follows the cordyceps as it goes up, and then when it comes up the hill, it's not a zombie horde that's at the top of the hill. It's worse. It's Abby and the Fireflies, and they have discovered Jackson, and that is where we end the episode.
Oh my gosh. That's it. And it's like, holy crap, it's about to go down. So that's where the episode ends, baby.
Well, I think, I feel like we've discussed this at length. It was good. I don't know if I have too much else to add. I know we talked about maybe doing some other things at the end, but it's already run long. Do you want to do the...
Let's do just a lightning round of the best of us. What were your top 3 moments?
Okay. Well, you got to introduce the segment. Do you want me to introduce the segment? Rock, paper, scissors?
Rock, paper, scissors. Let's go.
All right. Best 2 out of 3? No, just one.
Just one. Go.
Just one. All right. On shoot?
Yep.
All right. Ready? Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
All right. You win.
I get to introduce the segment. All right. You know what that means, though? That means you have to hum the intro music. So go ahead and give me my intro music for the segment. Hey everybody, welcome to The Best of Us. It's that part of the episode where Wade and I each say our 3 favorite things that happened in the episode, whether they were relevant to anything else or not. So welcome to, once again, The Best of Us. Wade, What did you find to be the best of us this episode?
My top 3 are going to be number 1, the counseling. The entire just the counseling therapy session with Gail. We talked about it at length. That's number 1 for me.
Do you want to alternate or you want to go all 3?
We can do alternate. Yeah, that's me. Go.
My number 1 is that they address therapy stigma to go with it. That they put Joel was authentically in his position. That was authentic to his character. That is exactly what Joel would do. And if we're learning from his mistakes and his successes, then that is something to pay attention to. I thought that was great, and I love that they included it. And I love that Joel was the one who said it, because that is the exact person who would say that. I'm going to therapy. It's changing my life. It's the greatest thing I've ever done. Don't tell anyone. That's exactly what someone like Joel does.
Number 2 for me is going to be Dina. All of Dina, her characterization, her moments, her wit, her clever nature, Dina.
I will say my number 2 is the way that we learned about that part of Dina.
Okay.
I thought that it was a very creative way to build on a character. I don't think we know so much about her, and we know nothing. We have a lot more questions, but we want to see a lot more of her on the show. I think she's going to be a great addition, and I think that the way that they built her character was very creative, very intentional, and very in line with maybe where we're going to be headed. So I'm looking forward to that.
We're pretty close on these 3. We're kind of 2 out of 3 right now. So number 3 for me, the stalker.
Oh, you like that?
The stalker. I loved it because I feel like we didn't get a lot of infected in season 1, and this one was like, okay, we're upping the terror again. And it almost felt, dare I say it, a little Walking Dead-ish, like they're evolving sort of thing.
Sure.
But it had that Last of Us vibe to it. There was just like, okay, this is zombie at the next level, infected at the next level. Loved it.
My third one is the reality is nothing more than a collective hunch. Yeah. I think that was so unexpected.
Yeah.
To have a quote like that tossed in and author referenced, like the author, speaker, attribute which would be attributed to an idiot.
No, you're great.
And I thought that was interesting. So just from my curiosity, I could be reading into it way too much, but
I think you nailed the whole season there.
I thought it was it was a curious thing. I thought it was an interesting thing to explore, and based off the other things that these folks have created, seemed like an interesting way to maybe set that up. So for me, I'm saying these are the things that I'm looking out for. These are, these are the melodies that are going to be played in like little motifs that when the overture hits and we recognize the melody, I think they're doing all those little things. They're showing us those little melodies in the symphony that when it comes time for the big part, we're going to know they're going to be familiar and they're going to be more acceptable to us. And I thought that they did a great job. Everything in this episode felt valid. Everything felt authentic to the characters. I was interested in what they did. And I just thought it was a really well done first episode set up for the TV show. That being said, this is going to be very different from the game.
Yeah, it is.
I'm so excited because for me, I would rather see the themes explored in another way and adapted than a one-for-one remake of a game. If you did one-for-one Last of Us and made it into a TV show, I'll just say for me personally, I don't know how interesting that would be.
I agree with you. Like we do a lot of remake conversations on this show, and with The Last of Us, I'll be honest, playing through The Last of Us 1 alongside the TV show, it felt a little repetitive in some ways, whereas I really don't feel like this one is going to be.
You cannot at any point in a show like this say, I am just sick of this character if they're not a character that they want you to be sick of. So if it's not a villain or somebody that they want you to be frustrated with, if you lose interest in or get tired of these main leads, you're in big trouble. So I think from my understanding, a lot of the folks that have some challenges or didn't really enjoy the show as much, it was because they found that those portrayals of the leads were a little uncompelling. So I'm interested to see where they go. I think it's going to be better that it's a sharper divergence from some of the storytelling and some of the factions in the game and the way that we experience it, because I think it's just going to be packaged well. And I have a high degree of trust in this team to be able to deliver that, because they've delivered some of my other favorite things that I've watched in the last decade.
I think you're spot on there. which is going to bring us to our final segment. We're not going to go too long on it, but we do want to say that this next segment is going to be about predictions, and it's going to be filled with spoilers for the game. And so if you are leaving us this episode, thanks so much for listening, and we will see you next week with our recap of episode 2. Make sure you like and subscribe, hit that bell so you know when new videos are live. So thanks so much. Now,
I didn't hear no bell.
I didn't hear no bell. For everybody else, let's go ahead and get into predictions.
Okay, so we're going to do one prediction for something that might happen just in the next episode. So that's kind of what we're going to do. So next episode, I should have thought about this. So much has changed.
I know,
about
just
from the conversation.
I know.
This is interesting, but I also feel like I can stall out a little bit. This kind of feels like the kids have gone to bed.
Yeah, it has.
Like... We put the no spoilers people. We said, go and get out of here.
Get out of here.
You just get out of here.
Okay, so like full spoilers on, starting now. Here's the question on everybody's mind.
Okay, are you going to ask the big question?
It's the big question.
Okay, all right. So for real,
if you are still watching,
if you
don't want to be spoiled
or listening to this,
go to bed.
Turn this off.
Turn it off. This is your final
Turn
warning.
this off right now. If you don't want this to be, listen,
please, I'm begging you.
Listen, we're begging you.
you.
If you don't want this to be spoiled for you, turn it off right now.
Last chance. 5, 4, turn it off. 3,
turn it off.
2,
turn it off.
1. Okay, when is Joel going to die?
Okay, my prediction, and I will say this in the sacred space after the kids have gone to bed. This is the night shift.
This is the night shift.
My prediction,
okay,
based on how I thought they might lay out the story and the pacing, was that Joel will die on episode 3.
Episode 3. Okay.
That was my prediction. Now, I know that we're talking about predicting for just next episode, but, honestly,
I think that it's
don't
important.
care.
I think it's important. So you think episode 3. I can see episode 3. This feels like a little bit of a longer burn than I was anticipating. See, I was originally anticipating end of episode 1, maybe episode 2, and I can still see episode 2, but now I'm kind of wondering, like, are they going to really drag this out? Like, are we going to see like episode 5? 6?
Here's why.
Know?
Just from a practical I like it. I like that we are. It's going to be a nightmare for me in editing. You know what? I'm just going to leave it. This section is going to be quiet, and we're going to whisper. We're going to talk like this volume for the rest of the episode. So if you need to turn up your volume a little bit,
then do it.
Wade, I will not make any loud noises. I'm going to speak in this tone about the rest of the time.
Okay, let's do it.
I don't see from a practical perspective how you get rid of Pedro Pascal.
So this is a great question.
I think they have to drag that out, and then they're going to sprinkle in probably some flashbacks or something like that to do it. But a whole season of flashbacks would be too many. So that to me is that narrative moment.
The game, so I don't know.
It's the game. The game is not a television show.
But okay, so here's the thing. So many moments in this first episode are flashbacks that take place in the game later on. Right? And so it's like, okay, we're just going a little bit more linearly through
I don't
this.
think they're interested in what the narrative structure of the game was so much as what the game was trying to accomplish and capturing it in the show, which is why I think it's good and why I'll go to bat for it, and we'll discuss that.
We already know more about Abby at the end of episode 1 than we do at this same moment in part 2 of the game.
Yeah, I would say I am curious to see how they handle that and their interactions. We just have no idea. I don't think there's anything from them that was not wasn't okay or didn't make sense. I'm not worried about them right now. I didn't get this. I didn't feel like they had a lot of venom.
So here's what I think is probably going to happen.
I started talking too loud. I broke my...
I know. Here's what I think is going to happen. I think next episode we're going to get this huge infected battle. Okay.
Oh, you think early?
I think that we've got the little tunnels, like tunnel tendrils coming out. And I think that the big assault on Jackson is going to happen in the next episode. It's going to be a flame war of like runners and stalkers and streakers and whoever else is going to come out. And I think in the craziness, my bet is that Abby is going to find or lure Joel out. And they're going to head to the mansion.
Oh, I was going to say, you don't think that they're going to do the storm thing? The blizzard?
Maybe.
Because
you're right.
The blizzard. So
Joel thinks it has been 5 years since I played the game, so it's going to be a brand new experience.
Joel, from my recollection, Joel thinks Ellie is in peril because she was on patrol in a blizzard and she's lost, and so she's holed up, and so you get this like ships in the night moment where they get the mansion. So I think what you're talking about transpiring, I think it's true.
I think don't remember Abby and them being so close to Jackson in the game. Like,
they could see it.
They were the hill seeing.
They were like a half mile away.
Oh man,
but they find them in the cabin. They don't really do much with Jackson. They just happen to run into them in the cabin.
And he doesn't know.
They don't know.
That's right.
Right. They have to figure it out. So they don't really interact with Jackson at all, actually. Right. So I think there's probably going to be a little bit more of something there with their crew and like Jackson, the settlement itself, maybe it seems.
I have a question.
Yeah.
We talked in this episode, and this may actually go to a actual prediction for next episode. We talked in this episode that Joel and many themes in this game have to do with transference. Do you think that Joel will transfer some of those daughterly, fatherly feelings to Abby before she realizes?
You think that he's getting so good at emotions?
Do you think he's getting so good that he begins to be like, oh yeah, you lost your dad, I'm so sorry. Like, guess what? I'm collecting orphans. So like, let me just help you now.
Oh, because what if not Marlene, who's
Mel? Dina?
No.
Who are you talking
What's
about?
his face? His wife. I'm so tired. It's so late. You guys, we also are recording the night of, so we're and I still have to edit it when we're done. So because this is going up tomorrow. Tommy's wife's name is
Maria.
Maria. Thank you. The women in charge, they're both women of color, and they start with the letter M.
Yeah,
and like,
that's true.
Just like, do me a favor, like, don't call them Marlene and Maria. See, I can't.
Mel.
And Mel. Stop it with that. Pick a new letter.
Yeah,
so the refugee conversation that we didn't have time to discuss in the other with the kids.
Yeah.
So because I think that
that's
an interesting prediction.
Because he said you got to look after your own first, or else you're no good to anyone. What if he actually listens to Maria and he starts to look for people outside?
And Maria's created this heart for refugees, in him,
like, you were a refugee,
and so he lowers his guard.
Up to lowering his.
Lowers his guard.
Oh, Evan, freaking Maria! How do you solve a problem like Maria?
Wow.
You tell Joel.
I tell you what.
That's my prediction. That's my prediction.
How are they going to get Joel to trust them? Wow.
That's it. They planted the seed for that.
That would be interesting. That's really clever, Wade.
Okay, that's my prediction for episode 2. There's going to be a transference of that refugee status and maybe like fatherly, daughterly. Yeah. But I think at the end of episode 2, you have Abby realizing, and it just cuts to an angry face and maybe a golf club. I don't know.
I think
the fact that this was on Masters Sunday, by the way, we can talk about that now. We're both dressed for it because we were expecting a golf club to make an appearance tonight.
I think next episode is a setup episode. I think most of what you're talking about is going to happen maybe more like episode 3. And I think that we've got to get everybody into the right places so that because we haven't even met the horde. So if there's going to be a horde or another infected, I don't think the tendrils that they've shown in the pipes are enough to justify. I think they would want to build the looming nature of a large horde in a way that would be different. So for me, I don't think I have any other predictions. I think I've talked. I think that's. I think I've enjoyed discussing it. I think it's. I don't have like a concrete.
This is so exciting to be back in it, and like week to week. This is more fun than season 1.
We did season 1 because it was context
so good,
for season 2,
and
we had to practice. We had to
season
practice.
2, like, I'm in it, man.
I am
like,
too.
I'm so ready.
Okay, here's my concrete prediction. I think we will see, not necessarily shoot, but I think we will see a flamethrower.
Okay.
Chekhov's flamethrower. That's my prediction.
I ended the game season 1 with a flamethrower. I made my way through the hospital with a flamethrower. Powerful. So, fiery.
How did it feel? Powerful. I love that.
Anyway, everybody, I think that's a wrap for this episode.
So. Hey, I almost said good night, everybody.
Good night. The kids are in bed. Don't wake them.
All right. Well, I'll say, yeah. So goodbye. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're so excited to get to check out season 2 of The Last of Us. This is a fun new thing for us. We're trying out a new franchise and a new thing, and we're having a great time. So we will see you on the next episode.
Do us like a couple favors, everybody. If you are enjoying this, number 1, like it. Number 2, subscribe if you haven't. Number 3, ring that bell. Make sure that you're getting the notifications. If you like what we're doing, leave a nice comment, okay? Please, let's start some discussion. And if you really want to go the extra mile for bonus points from Prof, share it, okay? I think these are 5 things that you can do to help out the channel, and also just send good vibes to people. So anyway,
and if you want to look up the podcast version and click subscribe on that helps us out a ton too. So we really appreciate that. There's an audio only version that uploads usually on time. I'm definitely not in charge of that part of it.
All right, everybody, this has been a blast.
What a treat.
What a treat. Thank you, Evan. And remember, everybody, when you are lost in the darkness, look for the light.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks to Husky by the Geek for our theme music, thanks to Nick Smith for our graphics, and most of all, thanks to you. This program is brought to you by viewers like you, and we really appreciate you. We hope that everything is going great in your world, whatever it is that you're thinking about, that you're working on, that you're looking forward to, that you want to get accomplished this week. You got this. You're going to make it. You got the energy. We're in it together. So take care of yourself, take care of each other, and we look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Bye-bye.